Good evening, everyone. Before I officially call the meeting to order, I just wanted to take a moment to run through the agenda just so that we are all on the same page and can easily follow what's happening when. I know that BevCam is ready and we're rolling so that people at home can follow. Thank you, as always, to BevCam for making sure that our meetings are accessible here and also for those who are not able to be here with us in the chamber. So tonight, we do have a presentation right at the beginning from the National Grid team working on the KV-115 Regional Reliability Project, so we'll begin with that. We do have some resident speakers signed up, and so we'll take those as soon as in the agenda as we can, although we do have 2 public hearings posted, which we will have to take at their posted times. There's a 7:30 posted hearing and a 7:45. So anybody who's here signed up in one of those resident speaker spots, thank you for your flexibility. I apologize. Sometimes with public hearings especially, we sort of have to take those as they come. And then we do have some routine business to take care of. We will take a brief break for some subcommittee work, and then we'll be back after subcommittee break to be able to act on anything that is actionable tonight. So with that, I'll officially call to order this regular meeting of the Beverly City Council, Tuesday, February 20th, 2024, 7:00 p.m. Ms. Kent, will you please call the roll?
Bowen? Here. Crowley?
Here.
Feldman? Hausman? Rotundo? Spang?
Here.
St. Hilaire?
Here.
Sweeney?
Here.
And Flowers.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Kent. Councilor Crowley, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Councilor Crowley. As I just mentioned, we do have a public hearing that's posted to begin at 7:30, and anyone who is here or watching now and planning on coming here to speak in either of the public hearings, you can come up and sign up to speak in front of the clerk on these 2 slips of paper at any point during the meeting or when you arrive here when the public hearings begin. But so that we can try to get our presentation in before that, I will invite our National Grid KV-115 team up to the podium, or if you'd like to present from here at this mic, either one will do. And just for those who are following along, or for those who are here, I know some folks who are here know this very well because they've been involved in this process as residents of the city, as those who have been involved in the Citizen Advisory Committee that's now been established for this project. Thank you all for your incredible time, advocacy, and input from the very beginning. This project has been an ongoing, long, and in-depth process, and so it's been part of the council's oversight and follow-up on this project in working with the residents at the beginning to create a grant of location with some conditions to not only have a citizen advisory committee with which National Grid meets twice monthly, but then to periodically invite this team to come back in and offer an update on how things are going, and the council can also ask questions. I'd like to try to keep the presentation to about 15 to 20 minutes so there is time for questions if that's possible. So I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Good evening, City of Beverly. Good evening, councilors. My name is Gary St. Fleur. I'm the lead project, stakeholder project lead on this project, and I'm accompanied by my colleague and PM, Dominic Nicotera, and my colleague, Will Langhoff. And today we're going to discuss the Beverly Regional Transmission Line project. You can hit the next slide. So on today's agenda, we're going to talk about project milestones, where we're currently working, our look ahead, our project timeline, and then we'll talk about our outreach and communication with the community, and then we'll leave time for questions and answers. And I'm going to pass it on to Dominic.
Thank you, Gary. Again, good evening to the Beverly City Council and residents. Again, my name is Dominic Nicotera. I'm the project manager on behalf of National Grid for the project, and I'll give a construction update at this time. So we want to start with what we've got completed to date. Some of this, I believe, took place at the last presentation in October, but we've made progress since then. To note, on the project, all of the manholes are 100% complete along the route. We've completed the Wellman Street Goat Hill area, which we know is a large concern of the project. We've also completed our River Street crossing, significant street. We've completed the area in the Monument Square in and around the Beverly Fire Department Station, which is also an impactful area. Overall, the project, or the underground duct bank, is about 35% complete to date, and we've substantially completed our work within our substations at both our East Beverly location and our Wade Street Salem location. So those are some of our more significant, areas of the project that we've completed thus far. So currently, where are we working? Primarily, it's in the Broadway Street, Endicott, Hale, and East Lothrop. On the slide, you'll see we have our percents complete in those areas. Each of those areas, except for Lothrop, are plus or minus half done, and our remaining durations indicated Broadway, 3, maybe 4 months, Endicott, less than a month, Hale Street, we have maybe 4+ months, and East Lothrop, that we, got started more recently, we have about 6 months to complete. With that, we have 11 crews working on the project. That's an increase from the fall. I know that the last team that spoke here, I think, spoke to having about 6 or so plus-minus crews at that time, with an expectation of increasing. That increase has occurred. It occurred around November. We've ramped up to 11 crews. We're maintaining that level of workforce, and we'll continue to do so throughout this year. What I also have, and would just make note on this slide, is a portion of the project that is planned for around late spring, early summer, and that is the Veterans Memorial Bridge crossing. What I depicted on the slide here is a representation of how that work will be done. It's from an articulated truck where that will work from the top side of the bridge, and the workforce from within the bucket underneath will attach the hanger systems and the conduit system as well. So just want to give a little indication of that, because it's the portion of the project that's a little different than our underground dig portion, and represents about 1,700 feet in length. Next slide, please. So, where are we going this year? The first half of this year, as I've given some indication, we're going to continue our work on East Lothrop and Hale. We expect and plan to complete on Broadway, Endicott, Pleasant, and Congress. Similarly, we're going to be starting and plan to complete our work on Thorndike Street, as well as the Broadway and Cabot Street intersection, another significant crossing. And we plan to start, as I mentioned a moment ago, the work on the Veterans Memorial Bridge and complete that. For the second half of the year, we expect to start our work on Cross Lane, or the more northern part of the job. We may still be working on East Lothrop during some of that time as well. We're going to be starting our cable installation in late summer, and we'll continue with that until it's fully installed and perform our splices in our manholes and at our substations. And our plan is still to energize the cable and place it in service by the end of the year. So the schedule has remained the same as the last team reported out on. That is our goal that we're working towards. In 2025, once the new transmission line is in service and the old is de-energized, we'll commence with the removal of the old line. And that will take place throughout 2025, both in some of the Beverly Street areas, the harbor, the crossing that parallels the Veterans Memorial Bridge, and most of it is along the MBTA commuter rail alignment. So most of it is not, the public way impactful. So just to summarize what I've laid out, and this is the project timeline, similar to what I've described. We'll continue to work on and install our duct bank throughout the rest of this year. We'll start to install and splice our cable the second half of the year and put the new line in service by the end of the year. Again, 2025 left for the removals. Now, I will say there is some risk that remains to this schedule. So there is a possibility of it sliding out a little bit. I think everyone understands what is probably the major driver behind that has been discussed here and in other forums, that is the encountering of more ledge than was expected when we first started the project. So that has certainly slowed down the productivity. We've employed additional means and methods to, deal with that. A lot of expense has gone into addressing that, that circumstance, but we're working through it. However, there are still some areas that we haven't started yet, as I noted, say, Cross Lane northward, that we haven't, gone to yet. So we do have an expectation of encountering some there as well, but the extent of it really isn't fully known yet. So that's the primary driver that does leave some risk in this schedule. So with that, I'll allow my colleague Gary to speak to some of the outreach components, and then we'll be happy to take any of your questions.
Thank you, Dominic. So in regards to outreach, with construction on this project, it doesn't move week to week. Sometimes we move month to month, depending on how much work we get done. So to combat that, we do a weekly newsletter that we put on our website, and we also email out to the team and to the public, those who are signed up for the newsletter. So our website is a good tool where you can find updates to the project weekly, but also an updated map to see where we are in that given time. Secondly, we do door-to-door outreach. As the project moves, we try to get out there and do door-to-door outreach a week or two before the actual move. So if it requires us meeting with businesses or just going out to reach out to abutters to say like, hey, we're gonna be on your street this week or the next few weeks, we get out there and do door-to-door. Every first and third Thursday, we meet with the Citizens Advisory Committee. And that meeting has been great because it gives us the point of view of the city. We get to see how people feel, things that we can improve on, or things that we're doing bad at. We use that as a platform just to talk and kind of work through things. And that's allowed us to make changes. Like last Thursday, there was a suggestion that, hey, maybe you guys should do door-to-door and just check on how people's doing. So we're gonna put that in our calendar to go out there and just knock and say like, hey, how are things going? But that meeting has allowed us just to get the point of view from the community, and it's been beneficial for us. Every 2 weeks, we meet with the DPW commissioner, and we talk about the project, where we are, how things are going, and we get good feedback there. Monthly, we have a Board of Health meeting with the Department of Board of Health, and we talk about rodent control. So we talk about where should traps be moving as the construction moves, where can we move the traps, how many catches of the month, and things like that. And that's been we use their expertise to make sure that we're catching the rodents that are impacted due to construction. Bi-weekly, we meet with the Beverly Police Department. We talk about our traffic management plans. And our focus there is to, one, focus on the safety of the crews in the field, but also the officers and the public. So we go through the plans and make sure that, everybody's on the same page so that we can keep safety a priority as we work in the neighborhood and throughout the community. And we still have our communication, which is our hotline and email. We encourage the city, abutters, anybody to reach out and just ask questions or make suggestions or let us know your complaints so that we can address them. We try to answer them same day, but we get back to them at least in 24 hours. But we encourage everybody to use those tools to reach out to us so that we can meet the needs of the city. And lastly, we've been able to acquire 3 working spaces at the Cummings Center. So for those abutters that are impacted by the noise of the construction, we encourage them to sign up and use that actual tool. And as we move throughout construction, we'll continue to promote that facility so that you can work peacefully there. And that's pretty much it. We'll leave it open for answers and questions.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there questions or comments from members of the council for the National Grid team? Councillor Spang.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Through you, I just wanted to share and emphasize that the Citizens Advisory Committee has been really helpful, and I wanted to point out and thank the residents who are here tonight who spent a lot of time in those meetings and advocated very strongly, along with Councillor Houseman and former Councillor Rand, and worked with the project team to get the supports like the office space in the Cummings Center, and to also advocate really strongly for things like how the plates are set at night, and that things like that make a huge difference for abutters and people who are directly living right along the project. And just to express, the ongoing frustration that this is a very impactful project and that people are living through it day in and day out. And I appreciate the responsiveness of the project team in helping residents handle issues as they arise, and just hoping that it does finish this year and as close to on schedule as possible. I know we'd all like to move on, so thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spang. And I think, Councillor Spang, you raising the reminder about that Citizen Advisory Committee is a good opportunity for us just to say, it's open to any resident, anybody in the city. If you are living along this route, if you're impacted by the route, if you have questions about it or ideas, as the team was mentioning, some of the ideas that have come from folks have been very valuable. If you have, it's not a closed group, it's not intended to be only the folks who are going, it really is for anybody. And so anybody watching, listening, or counselors, if we can continue to just let people know that is a resource, and if people are not able to be there, they can certainly reach out to any of their counselors, but we really do want to be able to hear from people to meet needs and to be able to try to improve quality of life. Councillor
And I
Spang.
remembered one other point I had, which was with the removal in 2025, I just want to renew the advocacy that Councillor Rand started, that the removal of the line through Goat Hill and along Wellman be done first, if at all possible, just so that it resolves for that, where they were impacted for such a long amount of time in the beginning, and a lot of the learning curve happened along that portion. So as much as that can be done.
Sure, no, understood, and I recall that was an ask from the last meeting in the fall. At this time, I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be able to be done. So as we get closer to that and we start our planning for the removal, we're definitely gonna, put that first and foremost.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Other questions or comments? Councillor Sweeney, please.
Thank you, Madam President. And I have a specific question tied to the project timeline slide, and I appreciate the detail that you all have provided this time around. The last time that some folks from National Grid came in to talk about this project, my question was mainly about, given the delays that we're seeing in Goat Hill, how could you meet the timeline that was originally laid out? And it looks like the project timeline slide meets this timeline in that the work would be done in 2024, and then the work that Councillor Spang was talking about, removing the line, would take place next year. My one question, I apologize if you covered this and I just missed it, the installing the duct bank, it seems as though that was where the issues in Goat Hill were seen with the ledge. And looking at then the map 2 slides earlier in the active and then soon-to-be active work areas, much of East Lothrop Street and then Cross Lane and onward, it appears that there has not been significant work done there yet. Is there any concern that the National Grid and other crews out there would run into similar issues in these areas where the work has not really taken place to this point that could delay the timeline beyond the end of 2024 as laid out on the project timeline slide?
Yeah, so great question, because as I noted, and everyone knows here, it has been the primary reason that has impacted the schedule and the productivity that we had originally envisioned. And yes, we expected and are encountering ledge on East Lothrop Street at this time. We knew we were going to encounter it to a certain degree, heading up Cross Lane as well. And we've already started some of what we call the pre-work in that area, which consists of, pre-drilling the ledge in advance of the next phase of bringing the actual excavation crews there with what we call the rock splitter that we've employed now for the, very hard granite that we're encountering at, not everywhere, but in enough locations. So the ledge has been the driver. East Lothrop and Cross Lane are very long streets, as we know. So there are still some unknowns remaining as to the extent of ledge that we will encounter. Additionally, or with a little more detail, the ledge that we do encounter at times, it has different characteristics. Some of it is, more easily and quickly broken away through more traditional methods. Some of it that we've encountered is so hard that that's what triggered our employing additional methods with the pre-drilling and the rock splitting. So sometimes we get through it a little faster, and sometimes we get through it a little slower. And then certainly the areas where, we don't encounter it and it's, normal, quote-unquote, digging in gravel and just dealing with the underground existing utilities is where we obviously make a little better production. So that's why I, hedged a little bit on the schedule clearly, because in that area, we do have a ways to go and still some unknowns remaining. But I don't anticipate, it going like an extra half year. By any means. I think that, we would maybe be triggering into the first quarter of 2025 if we go long.
That's helpful, and I would just say that particular updates on that piece of the project as we move further onto East Lothrop and into Cross Lane and these other areas where those unknowns exist, updates on that end are certainly what I am really looking for to judge where this project is overall in terms of timeline. So I appreciate that update.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Bowen.
Thank you. I just wanted to add my thanks to the residents who are here and have been here throughout the process, and to the team for working with us to try and minimize the impacts. So I have one quick question, and then wanted to read a comment in as well from another resident who couldn't be here. So my question, I've asked at various points along the way about how we're approaching staging of equipment, overnight between work days, but then also there's been some equipment out for long periods of time in some neighborhoods. So particularly now that we're into some inclement weather and have 11 active work sites, just hoping you can speak a little bit to how you're managing that, and particularly when there's, holiday weekends or breaks in work or snow coming or things like that, that we're minimizing the impact of those large pieces of equipment on the street.
So I know that has been a concern. We've done work to make those areas, storage areas of, the excavators and plates, those are kind of the primary things, generators, as neat and orderly as possible, and at locations that are least impactful to the abutters. For instance, on Broadway, there are some, niches, the way the curb line comes in and out. We want to be certainly mindful of the traveled way during off hours when we're not there. So we try to keep them as small and as least impactful as possible, especially when we leave for Friday evening. We make a special effort to make sure that those areas are tight, small, and neat and clean. I'm not going to say that it's always perfect by any means, but we do have a proactive process where we, make sure that as a team, we're talking, all the time about these things, but in particular, let's say on a Friday, when, okay, make sure we run the sweeper throughout the job, make sure all these areas are tight and buttoned up. As I said, from time to time, sure, we've maybe had a spot that hasn't been the greatest, and when that has come up, I've sent a crew out there on a Saturday to fix something, I know plates has certainly been an issue and a concern and a challenge. So, we've, worked hard to, minimize the banging. We employ rubber shims under all the plates. Again, where we have an area that maybe doesn't get done as well as it should, and we hear something from someone from the city or in a butter, we get out there. So I guess with that said, we can't do anything about the fact that we're gonna be here for another year, but what I'm trying to do is respond quickly to concerns as they come up on an individual basis and address those things right away. And in that way, we can show the city and the abutters that, we're listening, we're hearing your concerns, and, working hard to fix things that, as they come up.
And then if I may, so I also just wanted to follow up. The council received a letter from a resident who couldn't be here tonight, and I had questions that are in somewhat directed at the city or Department of Public Services, but relating to the contract with Bobrek Consulting to be the city's engineering consultant working alongside all of you on this project. So I wanted to thank Mr. Younger for sending in a letter, and he shared his thanks to the Community Advisory Committee as well for the work, and to the National Grid team. And so I wanted to just share sort of, his questions were around the role of the consultant and responsibilities, sort of when and how they meet with you all, with the city, with the advisory committee. So I'm just sort of summarizing that point, and wanted to ask how you view that relationship with you mentioned the meetings with our Public Services Commissioner, but sort of how you view that working relationship day to day, and then, suggest that as a council, we can perhaps have that conversation with the Department of Public Services separately, either alongside the Citizens Advisory Committee or within a Public Services meeting.
Thank you.
Through you, the question around the working relationship.
Thank you. If you're able to address any portion of that, about the working relationship between the consultant and National Grid, that would be appreciated.
Sure, and probably pretty briefly, honestly, because, so folks may or may not know. So Mr. Tim O'Leary was the prior project manager on the project. I've been on the project about 3 months. I'm aware of the firm that's been hired to represent the city's interests out on the project. I know that the field person works more regularly on a daily basis with our counterparts with National Grid, and we have 3 people that are assigned to the field to oversee our contractors' work on a daily basis, so I know that they're talking. And as Gary mentioned earlier, we have the bi-weekly meeting with the DPW commissioner that we go and, status each, bi-weekly to address any issues. But at a, let's say, project management level, we're not having a lot of conversations, to be honest with you. That is something that we can certainly discuss further with the commissioner and see if he wants to, or feels like he wants to bring them in to our bi-weekly meetings, which, we're perfectly fine with.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions or comments from counselors? Okay. Well, with that, I will pause us here, and I say pause because I think as this project is ongoing, these check-ins and conversations will be ongoing, and we'd love to invite you back again so that we can get further updates. As other counselors have referenced, I just want to reiterate for anybody watching, listening, as this project is moving along the route, if there are residents who are impacted who maybe were not at the beginning, but now you're starting to have questions, please don't hesitate to come to those meetings, or reach out to your counselors, because this project is a big project, as we've heard talked about tonight. Some of, I would say, the best mitigation that we've been able to make as a council, or that National Grid is making now, has been thanks to the input of residents from the very beginning. So we really do want to hear from people and hear both your ideas and any problems that you're encountering. I know it can feel sometimes hard to know where your concern is going. Will it get addressed? We really do want to try to make that happen. So anybody who's watching, listening, or counselors, maybe we can continue to put that word out as well. I want to say thank you to the National Grid team for coming for an update. We'll look forward to having you back. And again, I'll say thank you to the residents who have been a part of this as referenced from the beginning and have really helped to make this the least onerous on residents that it could possibly be. And continue to give us input and be ears and eyes in the project. So thank you. Thank you very much.
No, and thank you for inviting us. We look forward to coming, give you another update. You know, and I would just echo, if I may, on behalf of National Grid, you know, what you just conveyed is, you know, we feel similar. We know this is a very impactful project and long project and tough on the entire city and community. But, you know, the processes that, you know, we've put in place together, I think, in echoing what my colleague has said, have been really helpful for us as well. You know, some of what we are, you know, are told is sometimes tough to hear, but is also very helpful and useful. I think we've developed a good working relationship with the committee, the city officials, and, you know, with that, we'll, you know, forge ahead and keep that relationship, you know, going and positive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councilor Bowen, I've taken note of your suggestion also that we can follow up with Department of Public Works and ask some of those questions about Bowbreck and where they fit into the relationship as well. So thank you. This brings us to 7:30, so we will open our 7:30 public hearing on order number 42. Ms. Kent.
Order number 42, order that the City of Beverly, the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Tuesday, February 2024 at 7:30 p.m. at 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, City Council Chambers, relative to a request that's a transfer of $107,019.86 from the city's certified free cash balance to be placed into the opiate special revenue fund. And this was in the newspaper February 9th, 2024.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. And before I turn it over to our City Finance Director, Mr. Brian Ailes, who's already at the podium and ready to go. Thank you, Mr. Ailes. I want to mention that if there are folks here from the public who are hoping to speak in this public hearing or the one to follow, you can come up at any point and add your name to the public speakers list for these public hearings in front of the city clerk. And then we'll take those speakers within the context of these hearings in the order that they are signed up. And actually, I guess there was no and. Thank you. Actually, there was an and. It was to say that anybody who's here and needs to leave, if you're here for something else, feel free to come or go as you please. You're not bound to stay for the hearing. So with that, Mr. Ailes, I'll turn it over to you to begin.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Madam President, members of the council. What we have before us this evening is, as the communication stated, a transfer from the certified free cash balance. I really view this as somewhat of a formality. We received funds related to the national opioid settlement litigation that has been taking place for years now. And back in FY23, we received a certain number of payments that, per the requirements at the time, had to be certified as general fund revenues and therefore part of the free cash balance at the end of the year. Just recently in December, Governor Healy, signed into law Chapter 77 of the Acts of 2023, which specifically called out these opioid settlement funds and allows cities and towns to, in the future, from FY24 forward, deposit them directly into a special revenue fund, which allows ongoing access to these funds to support efforts in alignment with the terms of the settlement. And our health department Director, Ms. Delakai is here as well to talk a little bit about what we intend to do with some of these funds. But this order will allow us to transfer the funds we received in FY23 into this revolving fund. And then on a go-forward basis, any funds we receive as distributions from these settlements will go directly into that fund in a revolving manner. Happy to answer any specific questions about the mechanics of this. And obviously, Mrs. Delakai is here to discuss any aspect of the initiatives that we're going to be undertaking with the funds.
Thank you, Mr. Ailes. I think before I open it up for questions, it'd be great to have Ms. Delakai, if you're willing to get us started with just some of your thoughts and insight on what might happen with the funds. And then, Mr. Perry, I'd love to invite you up as well, and then we'll open for questions and public comment.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, members of the council. I just want to say thank you again for having me here this evening. And I hope that you will approve the allocation into the special revenue fund. So what the city is planning to do with the opioid settlement funds is that we are hoping to create a new position that we have titled the Social Services Navigator. Basically, what this individual will do will serve as a type of social worker for the city. So I have done research and analysis on the different types of services and access to resources that our Beverly residents have. We have individuals who can help with access to social services in the schools, the police department, the council on aging, but a location where we don't have that, which is a prime location, is the health department. And with those other positions, they can only serve certain populations, whether it be 60 and up, or school-age children and possibly their families, or those suffering from substance use disorder or alcohol use disorder. But we don't have anyone to specifically serve our general population from 19 to 59, which is probably the majority of our population. And so what we'd like to do with those funds is to create this position to serve as someone to fill in that gap for the rest of our residents. And what we want to do is help to empower residents to understand how their city government operates, the resources that are accessible to them within their community, and how, with assistance, they can navigate these resources on their own. We see this as a stepping stone and also a way to bridge our community with our local government and show our residents that we are trying to make an impact and help them in their difficult lives. As, for example, I will use something that we deal with very often in the health department. We have a lot of cases where we have individuals who hoard, and if those of you are not familiar with what hoarding is, it's, severe cluttering to the point where it's unsafe for that person to live in. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Hoarders, but something we have dealing with that with my department, we're primarily focused on enforcement. And so we have laws and regulations that we can use to enforce, to say, clean up the nuisances that are causing a risk to that individual or the general public. But we don't have any resources that we're able to give individuals for after how to cope with whatever is underlying these mental health conditions. And so we're really trying to find a way that we can bring resources, because we don't want the public to see us as someone who's punishing them for their illness or disability. We want to be seen as, we see you have this issue, we want to help, we want to be a resource. So that's primarily what we're focused on doing. I have created a job description for the Social Services Navigator, so if the City Council would like, I'm happy to share that with them at a later time. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Ms. Delakai. If I could, I'm going to bring our City Council budget analyst, Mr. Perry, up. If there's anything you'd like to add, Mr. Perry, to what we've heard, and then I will open for questions or comments.
Thank you, thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. I will be very brief. I know your time is limited. I wrote to you the end of last week on this issue. I do recommend you do this. The intention of the opioid settlement was obviously to go for just what the health director indicated, so certainly I recognize that. The Department of Revenue did promulgate some regulations. Everything that the administration is doing is factually accurate and correct, and they're doing all the right things. The money rolled into free cash, and as such, the appropriating body has to claw it out of there. That's what they're asked to do tonight. You will never have to do this again. With this specific money in the future, it'll go directly to the revolving fund, so it's a one-time event for you guys on that. Bottom line to it, as you know, we did certify $11,355,053, so certainly sufficient funds there. I strongly recommend you approve the recommendation of His Honor the Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perry. Counselors, are there questions or comments for either Mr. Ailes, Ms. Delakay, or Mr. Perry? Counselor Sweeney, we'll go to you first.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll start with some technical questions for you, Mr. Ailes, and then Ms. Delakay would like to maybe further discuss some other initiatives that the Health Department is considering using this funding for. But to start with some technical questions, Mr. Ailes, the first one, just to clarify and make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, the appropriations from this fund, if the city council is to approve this request, will essentially be at the discretion of the mayor, and that's it. Is that correct?
Yes, however, it needs to be in alignment with the terms of the opioid settlement agreement.
Okay, so that's helpful to understand. And tying that to the bigger picture here, I know the transfer at hand is only $107,000, which is a portion of what the city is expected to receive from multiple settlements across a handful of years. The last time I looked at this information was a while ago now, almost 6 months ago, this past summer. At the Attorney General's website, I saw that the city was expected to receive a total of about $1.8 million to be distributed through 2038, and that's, different years for different settlements. Is that information accurate? Is that close, not close in terms of what, at this point in time, with the settlements that have been negotiated, Beverly should expect to receive that would then, if the council approves this request, be deposited directly into this fund?
Yes, over time. The two settlements that are currently ongoing are the distributor settlement, which was the first one, and then there was a Janssen component, an additional settlement. Each one of those carries about $35,000. I'm rounding, but it's $35,000 per year in a payment, and they have different kind of sunsets to those payments, but in total, yes, the number you referenced is the most accurate that we have as well.
Okay. And so with that in mind, I did have the chance to talk with Ms. Delakay as this position and the need was being discussed, and I certainly appreciate the need, and I'm glad that the city is taking some action and using this funding to address the need. Is the plan that this position would be fully funded through the opioid settlement funding up until that 2038 date or so? With this $1.8 million, is there a discussion essentially of how long this fund could sustain the position? And then, given how far out, what the city's longer-term plan would be? Is it 5 years that the city would then need to pick up the salary for this position, or is it a longer time frame given the amount of funding that the city's expected to receive?
Yeah, I think with any resources that the council makes an appropriation to and that the administration puts forth in terms of personnel, there's an ongoing evaluation you need to do, right? I would never say indefinitely that this position would exist and be funded from the opioid settlement funds. I think that's our near-term focus, is to fund it for a few years, see what benefits it's producing, and reassess. Certainly, there's enough funding coming into the opioid settlement fund annually, in addition to what we're transferring, hopefully this evening, to cover the cost fully for a few years, if not beyond.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ailes. That's helpful. I do have some questions for Ms. Delakay, but I want to be cognizant of my fellow counselors here, so I'll hold on those in case they're not asked. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor Sweeney. And I think we'll pause here just to open the 7:45 hearing, and then I'll ask for a motion to recess that so that we can continue with this one. But we will pause on our hearing on Order 42 to open the 7:45 posted public hearing on Order number 36. This is a continued hearing that we're reopening from our last regular meeting this time.
Order number 36, the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, February 5th. That was continued to tonight. In council chambers, live stream on BevCam relative to National Grid is to install a gas main in Carver Street from an existing main in Carver Street to the main replacement in Gregg Street, as well as gas main in Kernwood Heights connecting two mains. And this was in the news in January 26, 2024.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. Counselors, I would entertain a motion to recess this public hearing to 8 o'clock PM.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, that carries 6-0. Thank you. So thank you, Counselor Sweeney. We will pick that back up at 8 PM, and we will resume, sorry, that wasn't very good. We'll resume our public hearing in order number 42, and Counselor St. Hilaire, I think I saw your hand.
Yeah, just for Mr. Perry, you reference in your memo the longer-term financial strategic planning in references to other free cash transfers that might be coming up. Could you help us make the connection to this order on this?
Sure. Good question, Counselor. Starting last April of 2023, the city embarked upon looking at financing 4 large projects, that being the library, the city hall, the dollar store, and the McPherson Youth Center. As you know from meetings and a lot of research that's been going on since that period of time, trying to get our arms around the cost of all this stuff. And certainly some of these projects have really grown quite a bit beyond what I think a lot of people expected. Last April, I articulated at that time, when we didn't even know that some of these projects had escalated, that strategically it was my recommendation, certainly to the council, that we use the vast majority of free cash over the next 2 to 4 years to help offset the borrowing costs associated with these 4 projects. And I said that in April. I think we discussed it during the budget season. I think it came out once in the fall. We had our retreat a week or so ago. I articulated that again. We've had some internal meetings with the mayor. I've articulated it again, and I'll say it again tonight. In order to be hopefully successful, and there's some serious challenges to even doing all this stuff, but one of the strategies I feel very strong about that I recommend to you is the utilization of most of the free cash, not only this year, but over the next couple of years to make that all happen. Now, tonight's request for $107,000 still falls in that category. As I've also articulated, there are times things are going to percolate. We have to be careful. This is one of them. We have to be careful of public safety-related matters, but it's my hope that the administration will eventually come to you and utilize my strategic thoughts and concepts. We'll see how that plays out, but it does all fit together. But however, given the circumstances of the opioid situation, I do recommend you do the appropriation of $107,000. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Bowen.
Thank you. So I appreciate the explanation of sort of the technicalities of how this fits in, and very supportive. Think it's important that the money that came to the city for this purpose gets used for this purpose, putting it into this really clear special revenue fund now and over the next few years, I think makes that easier for us to track and understand. I understand there's also annual reporting on how we're using the funds. The first batch of data statewide was just analyzed by the Globe a couple weeks ago, and we are not alone in having not spent money yet, because most communities have been going through a process as we have of trying to set priorities, figure out how the opioid crisis has hit our community, what services are available, what services are needed. So I wanted to commend our health department and Ms. Delakai on going through that process and getting a lot of feedback from stakeholders across the community, putting a plan together, and just, I think this is just a technical financial step, but I hope it's followed by quickly spending some of that money by getting a navigator in place, getting other programming in place. I think the sort of general approach to bringing in some harm reduction strategies in our health department, with our police department, sort of how we're approaching substance use in our community, these funds will be really helpful for that, and having additional social service support for that will be great as well. So, I think we probably won't see more of the finances coming in front of the council after this point, because it's sort of directly already earmarked money for a specific purpose. But I think it's important that we get that process started and that we then watch the outcomes and watch the reporting that may not come directly to us, but is out there for public view. So, not really a question, more of a comment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bowen. Councillor Crowley.
Yes, could you just elaborate a little bit more for me, more specifically, I guess, towards the opiate side and what your thoughts are as far as programming and help for the citizens of Beverly? I know we've had some issues, and we still do have ongoing with residents and stuff here. So I'd be interested in what your thought process is and where you're looking at as far as programming goes with this funding.
Yes, thank you, Counselor. I also should have prefaced with this. I may have come off this way, but this was not a sole decision based on what I thought the city needed. This was a collaborative effort. I have partnered with both our chief of police and our superintendent of our public schools, who are both in support of this initiative and thought this was a good resource needed for the city. Additionally, I used the coalition Be Healthy Beverly, which is run out of the YMCA by Rebecca Jackson, to collaborate on if we think this would be the best use of opioid settlement funds, as that group is primarily focused on working with addiction and substance use disorders and alcohol use disorders. And so we incorporated opioid use disorders in with that as well. And so we had very variable sectors represented across that coalition who gave feedback into that. We also put a survey out to the general public, and we got about 100 responses back from the public saying, and about of 50% of that, of the 50% of the total 100, there was 25 that really wanted to see access to social services, and the other one was access to treatment and recovery. And even though they're separate categories, they really do go both hand in hand, because the whole point of the social services navigator is to find those resources and help people access them. Some of the programming, I don't exactly know what it's going to look like yet. Part of creating this position is having them first identify all the resources we have in the community, and not just within our own community, but also the region as well, and then creating a strategic plan on where we need to prioritize first. For example, you might, with some harm reduction services, you might have heard of the naloxone boxes. That's one initiative that a lot of communities are starting to take, something I'm under discussion with the mayor and Be Healthy Beverly right now, instituting those throughout the community, whether in our businesses or externally in parks or whatnot. So that would be kind of one idea of a program, but I'm really going to, and hopefully the goal is to find someone well experienced in this role already who's doing this type of work, and that they're going to hit the ground running doing this type of work, and that they're going to be able to identify all of those resources so we can strategically decide what programs we want to tackle first. But it's really going to depend on what they end up discovering that we already have in the community, because there's so many resources out there funded by different grants and whatnot, and things are ever changing, and so we really need someone to keep on top of all of that. And so for someone to keep tabs on all those different resources and when they're expiring and when other ones are starting up is really crucial to figure out what are the resources we're starting with in the first place.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Spang.
Yeah, I just had a quick follow-up question, and I appreciate the work that you've done and everyone that you've collaborated with. And I especially appreciate the data-driven approach that you're taking to it, with getting the input from residents, and that the navigator is gonna, sounds like, do that as well. And I just wanted to ask if you envision the navigator also working closely with like the community impact unit and then City Connects from the schools, who may have some resources already identified. And I would imagine that they'll probably all work together in some ways, but just wanted to know if you had more thoughts on that too.
Yes, excellent question. Part of Be Healthy Beverly Coalition, there are members that sit in those sectors, and so I've had a discussion, individuals from Be Healthy Beverly, a subgroup we created, helped me put this job description together on how to best serve the city with the resources we already have. But one of the things I want them to do is even hold monthly meetings with all of the individuals that offer social service-related positions within the city and collaborate on what they can do, not only individually, but also as a collective. So there will be a lot of intercollaboration, and the other positions that I've talked with in the Community Impact Unit, the Council on Aging, and the City Connects Program Manager, they're all very excited about this, and they're very excited, looking forward to working with someone in this position.
Thanks. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Ms. Delakai, for outlining the work that the city has already done and some specific initiatives that are under consideration. That's where most of my questions were tailored to, so I appreciate you answering those. And essentially, this, again, may be a question for Mr. Ailes, but it sounds like at this point, the city, if this is approved, the action in front of the City Council is approved, the most likely first step would be to get a navigator in place. And then there's still a whole host of other potential actions that the city could take, like working with businesses on the, I'm gonna mispronounce the name, but the naloxone boxes, and other kind of tangible opioid or overdose prevention actions. Like those are under consideration, which I think is great. My question then is, do we expect to have available funding in addition to paying for the navigator's salary to take on some of these initiatives if the folks that you are working with, both internally and externally in the community, decide that in addition to bringing this position on, something like partnering with businesses and getting those boxes up and running or some other actions are necessary? Do you expect that we would have some funding available, or would we need to look to outside funding sources to add to the available funding that we're bringing in to add any new initiative in addition to the salary?
Great question, Councilor Sweeney. I would just like to say that I do expect that there's going to be additional funding within our opioid settlement funds. Roughly, I am anticipating between spending $75,000 to $85,000 on an annual salary for this position. We are going to be requiring them having a master's level in social work or very similar related field, and we're also going to be looking for someone who's a licensed mental health clinician, LCISW, or LCSW, which is the licensed clinical social worker. So we also want someone who's already well-versed in the field and has a lot of experience. So we don't want the individuals who are just starting out in their careers. We want someone who can really hit the ground running with this position. In regards to your question about the different program, I think it all depends on what type of initiatives we're looking for, and something we're also working on is collaborating with the grants director, and she is actively going to be seeking out grants that we could potentially use for anything related to the opioid settlement funds, whether it's continuing funding the salary position of this person or additional programming. But for something like the naloxone boxes, it's pretty cost effective with what we need for even, I would say, the boxes that are temperature sensitive, that if you want to keep them outside, I think they might be about $400 a piece. And then naloxone or Narcan is free. The health department is able to get it for free. So it's kind of a one-time purchase. We just have to strategically locate where they would be, and that would be working with Be Healthy Beverly, the community members, and also the Community Impact Unit to see where they've been responding to majority of overdoses and other opioid use-related disorders.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Are there members of the public who wish to speak in this public hearing? Please. So you can come to the podium, and then if you would just begin with your name and address for the record. And then Councilor Crowley, Vice President Crowley will just time up to 3 minutes. You have up to 3 minutes to add your comments. And if you hear his timer, if you would just draw your comments to a close, you don't have to cut right off, but thank you.
Okay, Caitlin Tricomi, and I live at 25 Whitney Ave. In regards to the social service navigator role, I just wanted to add that harm reduction services I think are really important, and also considering Beverly's unhoused community in this role. Right now, there's a lot of case management services that are being done by mutual aid and direct action groups in the area in Salem and Beverly, as well as with Ellis Square Friends, which is another org that supports folks who are food insecure. And so I think like really making sure that like, for example, if I try to get Narcan to give out to folks, like you have to go to the health department and they have to give it individually to folks. You can't really get it in larger supplies. So I think just like considering like the boxes, if they're made more available to folks, because we know that if I can give out Narcan to folks, and I think making it more accessible is going to help stop overdoses, and especially when people can get it in their hands. And I think, yeah, just this like role really needs to happen. I think like it's already being done in the community, and I also could see how like some of our community members who are unhoused, as well as who like work at Alice Square Friends and already have this experience could be in this role, and already know the community and know what they need. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tricomi. And Ms. Delakai, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like from what you're sharing with us that what you're envisioning would be accessible and would hope to support both those in Beverly who are currently housed and those who are experiencing homelessness as well.
Most definitely. When I was making this proposal to the mayor, I also have a PowerPoint presentation that I'm happy to send along to the city council members tomorrow morning. But one of the, something that we want to focus on is the underserved, underprivileged communities within the city of Beverly. So that could be our women and children, it could be individuals with disabilities, it could be our unhoused population, it could be marginalized ethnic and racial groups. And so we really want to make sure that we're putting equity at the forefront of the services that we're providing. And unhoused, I mean, the housing crisis is an issue everywhere, especially, you know, with the migrant families coming in, and we were even running to more problems with our regularly unhoused individuals. So housing is always a serious issue, and definitely I see those individuals coming to this type of person for support and assistance. And I get regular calls like this. And so to have someone who has better knowledge of the resources out there to assist these individuals could, I mean, I understand that it's just one person, but I do think one person can make a large difference in the lives of many, just by having that butterfly effect. As you help one, it's going to just open the door to help others.
Thank you very much, Ms. Delakai. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak in this public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close this public hearing and refer this back to the Committee on Finance and Property for further action this evening. And that does bring us to the time that we should resume our public hearing on order number 36. This is the National Grid petition regarding gas main in Carver Street, Gregg Street, Kernwood Heights. And thank you to everyone who was here to present in our prior public hearing and to our member of the public who spoke. Ms. Cuddy from National Grid is here, and I will invite you back to the podium. And just mention that if there are members of the public who are here to speak in this public hearing, you can come and add your name to the public speaker list, or as you saw, I also will open it up, and so you can raise your hand as Ms. Tricomi did in the last public hearing. Ms. Cuddy, thank you. I know this was continued to tonight so that National Grid could get answers to some of the questions that have been raised by residents of some of the streets in this neighborhood. I do want to mention that residents had put some questions that we heard at the beginning of the public hearing in writing, and National Grid was able to send along some of those answers, and so those will be attached by our city clerk to order 36, and they'll become part of the order for the public to be able to access as well. But Ms. Cuddy, if you have anything you'd like to begin with, we'll start with you.
No, I just wanted to say that last time I was here, I took the questions, the written questions that came in that day, and then the questions that came in verbally through the public hearing, and I was able to get answers for all of those. So.
Thank you.
So I'm here to answer anything else that's come up in the meantime.
Thank you. I do want to mention Councilor Rotundo is out sick tonight. This is his ward. This is a Ward 1 project. But I do want to mention that I know that, as Ms. Cuddy's referencing, Councilor Rotundo was able to organize a neighborhood meeting for anyone in the area who was interested in the project, and National Grid came and also was able to answer some of the questions. So thanks to Councilor Rotundo in his absence for making that connection for residents of this neighborhood. Councilors, are there questions for Ms. Cuddy, regarding this proposed project? Counselor Bowen.
Thank you. I just had a question about where the work hours conversation ended. I know it was referenced in the questions, but anything that came out of that meeting, and then the longevity of the project was sort of referenced. It depends on the hours per day and when it starts, but if you had any further detail on that.
Yes, I think based on that meeting on, with the local neighborhood, they have agreed to, we're ready late spring to start this project. It's scheduled for that timeframe. So with the meeting that they had there, the question came up, should we wait till the summer where the working hours can be longer, start earlier and stay standard, or do we do it during the school where we shorten the workday? Based on what I understand, the result of the meeting is that we will start late spring, taking advantage of the fact that part of Kernwood is often closed to get students to school in a safe manner. So that actually helps us that we can work there while that street is closed. So my understanding is that it's scheduled to start late spring and have minor adjustments to the working hours, but the part on Kernwood would stay the same because that street would be shut down anyway. And duration is still expected to, they still expect the area to have ledge in it, so it's a little slower than normal. Normally, it would be about a week for each street and a week to tie the services over in each street. Anticipating ledge, it would probably double that time. So if it takes 2 weeks for the main to go in the street, it would take 2 weeks to tie the services over Street 1, and the same for Street 2.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions from members of the council? Counselor Stein.
I just have one, and I'm sure Councilor Rotundo will be advocating on behalf of residents if their issues come up. But one issue that has been raised in other gas work is that it's sometimes hard to anticipate where the work will be happening, because sometimes there's digging for the connections or laterals that's happening apart from where the main is actually going in. So if there's as much as you can do to either visually or notify people where the work's gonna happen, in case they park their cars on the street or need to get out of a driveway. But I think we've asked for like the sawhorses to go out so that people know where work is gonna be happening next. But anything you can do to help people anticipate when work is gonna happen by their house is helpful.
Absolutely, yes. The supervisor, the construction supervisor and the meter supervisor should meet individually with the homeowners. If the meter's inside, they need to bring it out. We will do the piping inside to make that meet whatever requests that they have. So yes, they will walk the door to door. They will talk to the individual residents, and they will be available to help with any kind of scheduling. And these are two little smaller projects, so it should go more easily than a normal one with a big main.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions from the council? Are there members of the public here who wish to speak in this public hearing? Please, if you would come on up to the podium. And I know that you're familiar with this, but if you would start with your name and address for the record, and then Counselor Crowley will keep time for your 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm Dana Trudeau, and I live at 12 Greg Street, and I'm here representing a few other members of our street as well. I first want to start by saying thank you so much, Madam President, and Councilor Rotundo, as well as other members of the council and the city government that were able to attend our neighborhood meeting. That was very, very helpful, and we're all very, very thankful because we got a lot of information from that meeting. I just hope that that will be shared out to the rest of the community, because I know that a lot of the Kernwood residents were looking for that as well. And I don't have all that contact information. A few things I'll be saying sound like statements, but I'm really trying to make sure that those ideas that we talked about at the meeting are also being continued over. So they're really in the form of a statement, but they are questions that for Ms. Cuddy, if you don't mind. The first thing I'd like to ask is, or kind of verify is that we, yes, at our meetings discussed starting before the school year end, although we were very concerned about school traffic. And I know that the last meeting here at City Hall, we had a school counselor and parent speaking about that. But the National Grid manager and project supervisor discussed starting in April and May, and it being a 2 to 3 month long project, which should probably go longer because of ledge, and also to finalize the project and come back, let the the asphalt settle before they can do the final pave. We also discussed that 7:30 a.m. would be fine to start on Kernwood Heights, because Kernwood is closed at a certain time in the morning, and that would allow them to start anyway because traffic is rerouted at that time. The Gregg Street residents really appreciated that both representatives discussed being very open, and we appreciate their commitment to their communication with the neighbors, as we discussed and Councilor Spang brought up. The abutters and neighbors would love to have communication throughout the project when we need to move our cars. We also appreciate that they said that we would have access to get out of our street at all times, because we have a few serious medical situations and elderly folk on our street. And thank you so much for your continued commitment to that. Lastly, I think that's it, actually. Thank you so much we appreciate everything you've done for us. Thank you, Ms. Cuddy.
Thank you very much, Ms. Trudeau. And thank you for your work to help bring together all the questions from your neighbors and help to bring those to us and also to National Grid.
Yeah, so just to address what was just raised, the permit will help with that guidance in terms of hours, when we apply for it, when we get it. Maybe we should look into moving it up sooner, starting a little bit before April, but that would all be through the permitting process, and that would be, that would maybe be beneficial to do. Yes, they expected to start on Kernwood and start at 7:30 because that street was blocked off during drop-off hours. Communication with the supervisor, that's really typical. They also, each resident will get a packet delivered to them from National Grid prior to the project starting, and on one of the flyers will have the actual supervisor's name and cell phone number, so they're available for communication. I don't want to say 24/7, but pretty close. And then access to the street will be 24/7. There'll be 2 police details on each phase of the project, 1 on each end of the street, and they will help with any kind of emergency. And then the construction supervisor from the contractor will also be on site to help if there's any kind of emergency that comes up.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cuddy. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak in this public hearing? Seeing none, I will close this public hearing and refer that back to the Committee on Public Services for further action this evening. And thank you, Ms. Trudeau, for being here and for speaking again and helping us to understand what's happening for residents in this neighborhood. With that, we'll go to our 3 public speakers who signed up to speak. And thank you. I know I mentioned at the beginning that there would be some juggling of public hearings, so thank you to everybody for your patience and for being with us. Before I call these speakers up, I'll just remind all of us, for those who may be watching on BevCam, for those who are unfamiliar with the process, each of our regular meetings does have 3 of these spots available to residents of the city of Beverly to sign up and speak and address the council. It's not a back and forth or question and answer time, so you won't hear counselors engaging in a back and forth with folks who sign up to speak in this time. But as I always say, it doesn't mean that we're not listening and taking what's being said seriously. And it often informs our future conversation and discussion as well, and is an important part of our meeting. For those who wish to sign up to speak in these spots, the way that you sign up is by contacting the city clerk, either by email or by phone, no later than 9:30 a.m. the morning of a regular meeting. They are first come, first serve, so if you contact her and the 3 spots are taken for that day, she'll let you know and let you know the next meeting where there's a spot available, and you can contact the city clerk anytime before the regular meeting. Each spot is up to 5 minutes in length, and Vice President Crowley will be our timekeeper for that, and that's just to make sure that everybody it's fair and equitable. Everyone has the same amount of time to be able to address the council. So with that, the first speaker I have signed up this evening is Paul Hansen-Mitev, and I'll invite you to the podium. And I will ask each speaker to state your name and address for the record, even though I will give away your name when I call you out, if you would restate it. And then, as I mentioned to speakers in our public hearing, when you hear Councilor Crowley's timer go off, if you would just draw your comments to a close. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Hansen-Mitev. Thank you.
Thank you. Can council hear me adequately?
Yes, thank you.
My name is Paul Hansen-Mitev. I reside at 25 Vine Street, that's in Ward 6, the district represented by Councilor Matthew J. St. Hilaire. And I want to return again to City Council. I'm glad that I can be here on this evening to discuss the importance and urgency of the Beverly City Council considering taking up and hopefully passing a resolution for a ceasefire and humanitarian aid package regarding the war in Gaza. It's important that Council acknowledge their critical role in speaking on behalf of the citizens of Beverly who share these concerns, and at the same time, we're asking for Council's help to communicate with our elected officials in Washington, D.C., who up till now have been unresponsive. On a housekeeping note, I and other members of this working group on the resolution will be at the Castle. That's the bar and game center by the train depot off of Rantoul on Friday at 7. And any members of the community who are watching now on BevCam are welcome to join us. I understand that in order to avoid a quorum, members of City Council may not be able to attend. Also, I want to thank Clerk Lisa Kent. She informed me that I can also email each and every member of Council directly with critical information regarding this matter. Though at the same time, I do appreciate that I can communicate directly with Council President Flowers and with the clerk, then everyone will be on the same page. So as of today, the death toll that's been accounted for, persons who have been accounted for, is near 30,000 people in Gaza. Please remember, as I spoke of last City Council meeting, that the recovered bodies is what I'm speaking about. And it's important to know that there are thousands upon thousands of bodies that have not been recovered that are under rubble. Today there was a ceasefire motion before the United Nations Security Council, and the United States vetoed the resolution that was proposed by Algeria. I want to also remind Council that I was able to deliver the current urgent update from Jewish Voice for Peace's Health Advisory Council. And I'd just like to draw the attention of each and every member of Council to that document. And also, I emphasized an editorial that was published in the Los Angeles Times by a physician from Virginia who spent a number of weeks there speaking about the conditions there being worse than war. In a sense, the equivalent of the term that she used was annihilation. The risk of all diseases is greater, including waterborne and other communicable diseases. There continues to be even a worse lack of medical supplies, critical medicines, and hygienic products. Malnutrition, hunger, and conditions like a famine are prevailing. On another note, today there was a very, very important and enlightening talk given by Reverend Max Sklar, who's with us today at Endicott College. And I was fortunate enough to attend. It was attended by about 35 students and 5 faculty members. Max shared with me that his father's a professor at Endicott. and also that, interestingly enough, he was born here in Beverly at the hospital. Attended K through 8 at Glen Urquhart, that's in Matt's ward, and also grew up in First Parish, UU, which is in Ward 2. He was kind enough to say that he'll stay till the end of council and offer to share his thoughts on the fact that he's been doing religious work in the occupied West Bank and was in Palestine on October the 7th. And with that, in keeping with effective communication, democratic procedures, consensus building, mutual respect and open dialogue, timely correspondence, and sharing information, I just want to say that we look forward to working together with City Council with goodwill, in a sense, a solemn yet magnanimous goodwill. And afterwards, I'll also be available to answer any questions that City Council has. Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much, Thank you very much, Mr. Hansen-Mitev, for being here and for your time, and also for your patience as we've been juggling the agenda. Our second speaker who signed up this evening is Ruth Bayer. So similarly, I'll ask you to start with your name and address for the record, and then you have up to 5 minutes, or until you hear Councilor Crowley's timer, to address the council.
Thank you. My name is Ruth Bayer at 81 Lovett Street. Madam President and members of the City Council, my family and I have lived in Beverly for nearly 8 years, and I'm here to support a permanent ceasefire resolution approved by the City Council in Beverly. I am Jewish by adoption, and I grew up in a small Zionist Jewish community in a small city in northern New England. I am also Palestinian by birth. In my early 30s, I met my Palestinian-American birth father and traveled eventually to Palestine to meet my cousins in the occupied West Bank. My birth father taught me, through books and discussion, to understand the history of Palestine, a history that had never been mentioned in my growing up as a Jewish child. I learned about the Nakba, the expulsion of Palestinians from their cities and towns, in parallel to the creation of the State of Israel. In the making of statehood, Palestinian lands were seized, and 750,000 Palestinians became refugees in Gaza, the West Bank, and elsewhere. I learned about Israel's ongoing brutal occupation and their absolute control over the daily lives of Palestinians. I am grateful for that education and that awakening. I hold dear my Palestinian heritage, and my heart hurts every day for Gazans and all Palestinians. As of this Saturday, February 17th, Israel's military has killed 29,170 Gazans, 12,300 of them children. I acknowledge the terrible attacks by Hamas on October 7th, but this occupation and the siege of Gaza did not begin on October 7th. What Israel is doing is not in self-defense. The illegal occupation, imprisonment, and killing of Palestinians began 76 years ago. What is happening now in Gaza is a genocide. Because Israel will not allow outside reporters in Gaza in, Gazans report on the bombing of their own people, the decimation of their own neighborhoods, hospitals, mosques, shops, schools, and anywhere families might take shelter. From reports by the Euromed Monitor, quote, Israel's continuous air, land, and sea attacks have destroyed 70% of Gaza's infrastructure since October 7th. An acronym has been created just for Gaza, WCNF, Wounded Child, No Surviving Family. According to the Save the Children organization, as of January 7th, more than 10 children a day have had one or both of their legs amputated. Can we imagine that this could be our own children? Now there are 1.5 million people taking shelter in Rafah, the southernmost point of Gaza. In a statement on February 15th from the UN Palestinian Rights Committee, those Palestinians in Rafah are, quote, staring death in the face without access to food, medical care, or safe shelter. Since World War II, the U.S. has given more foreign aid to Israel than to any other country, totaling $317.9 billion for military assistance, according to USA Facts. Our Congresspeople have voted to send billions more in military aid in the past 137 days to fund the Israeli military assault that has resulted in the daily massacres of Gazan children and families. It is past time that we all spoke about this. Imagine how this money could be used here at home as well. People from all walks of life and beliefs worldwide are protesting, demonstrating, and speaking out in myriad ways for our elected officials to demand a permanent ceasefire and to be on the right side of justice. In Beverly, our words and actions matter as Americans dedicated to compassion and nonviolence. I believe there are many people in Beverly who feel as I do and who have the same concerns as I do. We are asking the Beverly City Council to approve a resolution that calls for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and the West Bank and calls for adequate humanitarian aid and assistance to be delivered immediately to prevent starvation, disease, and long-lasting trauma. We invite this City Council to engage with us, to call on our Congresspeople and our President to end the current and heartbreaking violence in Palestine so that all who live in the region can begin a process toward committed and a justly negotiated peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bayer, for being here, and thank you as well for your patience and your flexibility as well with our agenda moving around some tonight. I appreciate that. Our third speaker signed up for this evening is Paul Treffry. And Mr. Treffry, also I would invite you to begin with your name and your address for the record, and then you as well have up to 5 minutes to address the council or until you hear Councilor Crowley's timer.
Paul Treffry, 43 Glidden Street. I wish to say that my comments pale in comparison to my two previous speakers, so I applaud them. But I sent all of you a link earlier today regarding state Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 90, regarding the governance of airports. And I want you to know this because there is a lot of uncertainty, even on the Airport Commission, having spent 8 years there. And even during 2 episodes where there were issues with previous airport managers, where who does the airport manager work for? Does he work for the commission or to the mayor or the city council? I will say that after 7 years of ambiguity and no real answers of where the authority of that commission comes from, you know, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 90 clarifies exactly that the Airport Commission has the sole responsibility for the management of the airport. And the Airport Commission may select an airport manager. Airport manager reports directly to the commission, not the city council nor the mayor's office. There was a lot of ambiguity about that clarity, and having this document brought before us about 8 months ago was an eye-opener. I will tell you, in the past, you know, my personal experience has been that the power and the authority of the Airport Commission, to some degree, there was a chasm where the administration stepped in and seized some of that authority to the detriment of the airport. I tell you, when I was brought on, I was vetted 8 years ago. Again, the mayor said, you know, we've got a very powerful commission and a weak manager. I want the opposite. And I will tell you, even 11 months ago, when I had a half-hour conversation in the mayor's office, a very contentious conversation, I will share with you, his attitude was, the Airport Commission should be nothing more than an advisor to the airport manager. And by exploring options for developing the 11 acres of property out there, we were being called an activist commission, and that we shouldn't be doing it without an airport manager being hired. Well, that flies in complete contrast to what state legislation and federal regulation states. I will add that, you know, when I had that meeting, you know, the FAA was, you know, gave me a little letter of support saying, I hope you can go to the mayor's office and get, you know, fair market value for the property back there. But we're not going to negotiate for you. And then the next day after the meeting I had with the mayor's office, they said, how did it go? And I said, well, not too well. And I explained what I just shared with you. And it's at that time that the federal government stepped in and said, we'll take it from here. And I think they just said, you know, we were a little bit outraged. And that's when they created the document that said the city is going to have to sit down and negotiate in good faith with the Airport Commission and keep some things that the city wanted in those lease agreements that the FAA said is totally unacceptable. So thank goodness for the FAA, but it really was the perspective of the mayor that drove the federal government to get involved. So I just wanted to let you know, because like the school committee and its relationship to the school superintendent, the Airport Commission and the airport manager is the same way. You know, the school superintendent does not work for the mayor or the city, it works for the school committee. And the same situation is the two bodies are very similar, but this Airport Commission is the exact situation where the manager works for and under the direction of the Airport Commission. And I just want to advocate for the Airport Commission and to ensure that all of you understand that that relationship actually exists between the airport manager, the airport commissioner, and what the sponsor as the city of Beverly actually is and what it is not. So I thank you for your time and your interest, and I look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Treffry, and thank you as well for your flexibility and your patience as we've been moving through the agenda this evening. I appreciate that. Thank you to all of our speakers who were here and who spoke with us this evening. As I mentioned, it's an important part of our meeting, even if it's not a part where we engage in question and answer or back and forth, and I appreciate your being here. Counselors, I would entertain a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
Second?
So moved.
I was gonna say, did I just not hear? We'll just do that backwards. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute recess and we'll pick up after that. Thank you. to our speakers who were signed up to speak, as well as to all the residents who have been here. We had residents who have been involved with the National Grid project who were here this evening, residents who spoke in our public hearings, and residents who had signed up to speak. And so thank you to everybody. We will pick up now with acceptance of minutes of previous meetings. And we have 3 sets of meeting minutes to approve this evening. The first from our special city council meeting retreat, February 10th, 2024. A set of minutes from our finance and property committee meeting, January 22nd, 2024. And a set of meeting minutes from our legal affairs committee meeting, January 22nd, 2024. Is there a motion to approve these 3 sets of minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 6-0, and we'll approve all 3 sets of minutes. Before we begin communications from His Honor the Mayor, I do want to mention, I mentioned many of the city staff and, of course, our budget analyst, Jerry Perry, who are here, but I'm remiss in not having thanked Catherine Barrett, our city grants director, and Jesse Dole, our assistant city solicitor, for being here with us. Thank you both for being here this evening as well. Ms. Kent, let's go to communications from His Honor the Mayor, please.
Order number 55, dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $21,150 Emergency Management Performance Grant from the Department of Homeland Security and the Federal Emergency Management Agency in coordination with Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. This grant funding will be used to purchase a Zodiac boat, a John boat, and 2 Mustang dry suits for the Emergency Management Department to use for water rescue missions, particularly during the annual hurricane season. The EMPG program plays an important role in the implication of the national preparedness system by supporting the building, sustainment, and delivery of core capabilities essential to achieving the national preparedness goal of a secure and resilient nation. The $9,950 match funding would be provided by emergency management budget. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council, Mayor approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be extended for this purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by acting on this matter at your upcoming meeting. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property.
Order number 56. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $25,000 firefighter safety equipment grant from the Mass Executive Office of Public Safety and Security and the Department of Fire Services to purchase coats and gloves, turnout gear for the Beverly Fire Department. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant at your upcoming meeting. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property.
Order number 57, dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly have received a $500 donation of gift cards from Iron Horse Funding LLC. This gift is intended to benefit the senior citizens in our community. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gifts to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this donation by acting on this matter at your upcoming meeting. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property.
Order number 58. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly was awarded a $53,000 Massachusetts Department of Mental Health grant to develop a training and technical assistance center crisis intervention training program at the Beverly Police Department. The Essex County TTAC will provide trauma response training to police officers in the Essex County area. Response training, to Massachusetts with a goal of improved services in responding to citizens with behavioral health challenges. Additionally, the Essex County TTAC CIT program will provide police departments with tools to implement critical response protocols and house clinical responses and assist in identifying and developing relationships with community-based behavioral health agencies. The grant is for a 4-month period in FY24 with renewal for a full 12 months for FY25. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval before any grant, donation, earmark, or gift to the city can be expended for the prescribed purpose. I therefore request the city council approve this grant by acting on this matter at your upcoming meeting. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property.
Order number 59. Dear Honorable City Council, I hereby appoint, subject to your review and recommendation, the following residents to serve on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Mr. Jonathan Salt of 66 Haskell Street, Miss Jennifer Plowden of 18 Lowell Street, and Mr. Jared Porter of 50 Hillside Avenue. Their terms are effective as noted above. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 60. Dear Honorable City Council, I hereby reappoint, subject to your review and recommendation, the following residents should serve on the Veterans Advisory Council: Mr. Charles Rehal, Ms. Susan Moran, Mr. Paul Lance, Mr. Corey Paulette. These terms are to be effective March 1st, 2024 until March 1st, 2027. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Public Services.
Order number 61. Dear Honorable City Council, I hereby reappoint, subject to your review and recommendation, Mr. Robert Pierce, 5 Old Planters Road, Beverly, to serve on the Register of Voters as a representative of the City Democratic Committee. His term is to be effective March 31st, 2024 until March 31st, 2027. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Public Services.
Order number 62, Dear Honorable City Council, I hereby reappoint, subject to your review and recommendation, the following to serve on the Parking and Traffic Commission: Dana Morton, Greater Beverly Chamber of Commerce Representative; Darlene Nguyen, City of Beverly Planner and Director. This term are to be effective March 1st, 2024 until March 1st, 2027. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs as well.
Order number 63. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the city is preparing to launch the Beverly Community Electric Program, joining nearly 170 Massachusetts communities with an electricity aggregation program. This program was first initiated in 2020 with the City Council's vote to pursue aggregation on July 7th, 2020 via the resolution in support of green municipal aggregation, Order 160-2020, presented jointly by the Clean Energy Advisory Committee, the Mayor's Office, and the City Council. The regulatory requirement of the legislative body was fulfilled at this point, and now we invite you to participate in the public conversation to help our constituents learn what Beverly Community Electric will mean for them. As a recap on this long-awaited launch following the resolution, we hold a public review and comment period for the DRAG plan in January and February 2021, and filed a plan with, the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities in March 2021. The TPU finally approved Beverly Community Electric after nearly 3 years, and we welcome news of its approval in December 2023. The final approval order was submitted by the DPU to the City Council on January 2nd, 2024, Order number 37, 2024. The city recently entered into a contract with First Point Power that will keep Beverly Community Electric prices fixed for 20 months from May 2024 through the first read of January 2026. While future savings cannot be guaranteed, our aggregation program's standard default price is more than 20% cheaper than National Grid's current basic service price and include 10% more renewable energy. The program website, beverlycommunityelectric.com, will be updating with details of the new contract and program launch on February 21st. At the end of February, we will mail program information consisting of a letter from my office, program pricing, an opt-out notice, language access notice, and a reply card to those Beverly residents and businesses who are currently enrolled in National Grid's basic service. The opt-out window runs through March 2024. In the meantime, we will work with our program consultants, the Clean Energy Advisory Committee, and advocates to spread awareness of the program. Excuse me. We will share detailed materials as they are developed over the next few weeks, and for now, we invite you to join a virtual public information session on Monday, March 4th at 6:30 p.m., which will be recorded and uploaded to the program website, and in-person information session will also be in the Council on Aging on Friday, March 15th at noon. Thank you for your support of this impactful new program. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. I would entertain a motion to receive that and place it on file.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That carries 6-0. Let's go to communications from other city officers and boards, please, Ms. Kent.
Order number 64 from the city clerk, a livery license renewal application for BAT Enterprises LLC located at 19 Beckford Street.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 65 from the city clerk, a new livery license application for Alba Boston Limo LLC located at 283 Cabot Street.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 66 from the city clerk, updates regarding the 2024 lodging house license for 276 Rantoul Street, 32 Broadway Street, and Cosmo Residence Realty Trust Garden City Residences, 490 Rantoul Street.
Councilors, these are lodging house licenses that were extended on a probationary period by Legal Affairs. I would entertain a motion for us to be able to vote these on the floor this evening, because if they're sent to Legal Affairs, we don't have a quorum of that subcommittee, and these lodging houses won't be able to have their licenses voted on tonight. Is there a motion to be able to discuss and approve these on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So is there any further discussion? Actually, I apologize. Before we go into further discussion of them, I'd entertain a motion to approve order number 66.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Now, is there any further discussion, questions, or comments? Counselor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll just make a quick, add some quick context. I was on the Legal Affairs Committee last term
Thank you.
when we discussed some of these licenses, and there were a handful of outstanding items that were flagged by the Health Department, and the determination of the Legal Affairs Committee at that time, even though we had shifted the process forward in hopes of wrapping some of these things up by the end of the year, we were at the point where a handful of these items were not, they weren't closed by the Health Department. The plan was that they would go back and further re-inspect, and so that was why these provisional or probationary licenses were granted, to essentially allow more time for the owners of the lodging house to work with the Health Department to remedy the violations that were still pending at that time. Just to provide context, and then, obviously we got the updates in this order.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Thank you, Counselor Sweeney. That's helpful context and a good reminder for all of us. Counselor Bowen.
Thank you. So just wanted to clarify procedurally, so these updates have come in. Are we looking to approve full licenses for this year? And does that need to be a separate motion based on this order? Or sort of what's the status since they were approved through a couple of weeks ago and now back in front of us?
Thank you, Counselor Bowen. Assistant Solicitor Joel, would it be possible for us just to clarify this question that Counselor Bowen has with you? It was a process question.
I'm happy to repeat it.
Yes, Counselor Bowen, I could repeat your question, but you're very capable of doing it, so
I'm sorry, I would need someone to repeat the question.
Counselor Bowen.
Thank you. I was just asking procedurally, so we've received updates on the status of outstanding issues with provisional licenses for 3 lodging houses, and copies of their provisional licenses that were good through the beginning of February. And I believe the action in front of us is to potentially approve full licenses or to continue provisional licenses. And my question is, what actually needs to be in front of us, since the proposal or the order is simply providing updates to us? So sort of what are our options for tonight in terms of motions we might need to make to provide these?
So I believe, I do know there were updates provided as to the inspection status for these 3 lodging houses. So per the ordinance, you would have the council would have the authority tonight to either grant a license, which would run for the rest of this calendar year, grant a probationary license to a date certain, upon which date, in the event that there are outstanding inspection issues or any outstanding violations that haven't been remedied, or do nothing. And at this point, the probationary licenses technically have expired. So you could issue a full license, issue another probationary license, or take no action. They would be unlicensed at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Dole. Thank you, Counselor Bowen. I think to answer your question a little bit further, we would need a motion to either approve for the full year or probationary. I think that's what you were asking, based on what Mr. Dole is saying. I'm going to go to Counselor Crowley next, please.
Just based on reading, we did get updates for all the boarding houses that all the violations and stuff were taken care of from the health department, as far as for each of these boarding houses. So whatever was outstanding has been corrected. The one was, as of February 2nd, all the violations had been corrected. For 276 Rantoul Street, those were done and re-inspected back in December, and were corrected, so it looks like all three of them, they've been corrected.
Thank you, Counselor Crowley. Counselor Spang.
I just had one question, because I saw the cover letter that said they were corrected, but then in the 490 Rantoul Street, they point out that there's one, it looks like one remaining violation may exist, so maybe for that one, we extend the provisionary unless there's more information on that.
Sounds like there is additional information that's been corrected now.
It was corrected.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm asking the assistants. Yeah. Everything was corrected as in, Councilor Rotundo was going to let everybody know what was going on because he was directly involved.
Okay.
But yes, everything was corrected and everything's up to code by all inspections.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. And thank you, Counselor Spang. That's a great point, great catch, just to check in on that. Is there any further discussion from the council? So I think rather than the motion to approve Order 66 as it stands, whoever made that motion, would you be willing to withdraw that motion and resubmit a motion either to approve this for a probationary period or for the whole year?
Who made the motion? So I'll withdraw the original motion, but I will make a new motion to approve this for a full year license.
Thank you, Councilor Crowley. So we have a motion to approve these lodging house licenses for the year. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on this? Councilor Bowen.
I just wonder, maybe to Ms. Kent, if there is some documentation, since Councilor Rotundo isn't with us tonight. Just want to make sure we're voting with full information on that last one that was still pending as of our packet.
The Assistant City Clerk has all the information from the inspections, from all the from the building, from health, from fire, and everything's up to where the Legal Affairs Committee wanted it to be. Everything's passed. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. That carries 6-0 on Order 66 to approve those licenses for the duration of the year.
We can get you copies of those too if you want to see. Yeah. Order number 67, from the Planning Director, Darlene Nguyen, propose amendments to the City of Beverly Ordinance, Section 113-2, possession of consumption on public ways and public places or on private properties, Section 192-61, sandwich board signs, Section 253-24, signs, awnings, and displays, Section 253-35, public meetings and streets, temporary stands for selling goods.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 68 from the Planning Director, Darlene Nguyen, a proposed interlocal agreement for on-demand rideshare service between the City of Salem, Town of Danvers, and the City of Beverly.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs. And I did have a chance to connect with Ms. Nguyen about both of these orders, knowing that Legal Affairs will not be able to meet tonight. They will be able to call a meeting, a subcommittee meeting, before our next regular meeting. And Ms. Nguyen will be able to attend there, and then we'll move those forward from that point. Thank you, Ms. Kent. Let's go to communications, applications, and petitions, please.
Order number 69 from the Department of Environmental Protection Waterways Regulation Program.
I'd entertain a motion to receive that and place it on file.
So, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, that carries 6-0.
Order number 70 from Glopsky Councils at Law, the Anchor Point Project 106-108 Sawyer Road, a request for a quitclaim deed conveying a parcel of land at the intersection of Sawyer and Tozer Roads.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs. We do have some unfinished business from a previous meeting. Councilors may remember that we had a chance to briefly discuss this order. This is what came out of Legal Affairs on some amendments to city ordinances from our last term, and we'll be working with the city solicitor to schedule a time when she'll be able to come and present to the council as a whole, and we can move forward on this one. So we'll keep it under unfinished business from a previous meeting at this point. Let's go to motions and orders, please.
Order number 16, 2024, be attained to the City Council of the City of Beverly as follows: in the year 2024, an ordinance amending an ordinance relative to Chapter 270, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 270-49, off-street parking, handicap parking, amending Section 270-49 as follows: a handicap sign as amended to be approved as a handicap parking space at Columbus Avenue, north side opposite approximately 1 Columbus Avenue. And this was in the newspaper on January 5th, 2024, and this is the final passage and final vote.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. So as you just heard, this is available for final passage this evening. Is there a motion to approve Order 16?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on this one? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 6-0, and that is for final passage. I would entertain a motion to take a break for some committee work.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. That carries 6-0. We'll have Finance and Property stay here and Public Services in the committee room.
All right, call to order, Committee on Finance and Property. I think we'll start with order number 42, which is the free cash transfer to the opioid special reserve for $107,000. Unless there's any further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you to Mr. Perry for your memo and Ms. Barrett for your work as well. I'll take up order number 55. This is the grant for $21,000 for the purchase of equipment for water rescue missions. Ms. Barrett, do you have anything to add on this one?
I just wanted to add, this is an annual recurring grant that Emergency Management and Mass Task Force 1 applies for different things, so it'd be great to approve that for them.
And there's a $9,000 match.
There is, yes, correct.
Questions, comments? Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Approved 3-0. Next is Order 56. This is a $25,000 grant, firefighter safety equipment grant from the Department of Public Services, Public Safety and Department of Fire Services for the purchase of coats and glove turnout gear. Any questions or comments? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is order number 57. This is a $500 donation. It looks like gift cards from Iron Horse Funding LLC to benefit senior citizens of our community. Just had a question, Ms. Barrett. What is Iron Horse Funding LLC, and what are the seniors getting out of this?
Yeah, thanks. I understand that Iron Horse Funding LLC is based in the Cummings Center, and I believe it's a marketing communications company. And it's a variety of gift cards for the senior center, senior citizens to restaurants and places they can get, I believe, like food or dining. So
Cool. That was very nice of them. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Approved 3-0. And the last is Order 58, $53,000 grant from Mass Department of Public Health. This is for crisis intervention training for the Beverly Police Department. Any questions or comments? Counselor Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a couple of questions. They may be better answered by the police chief, so if you can't answer them all, Ms. Barrett, that's okay. But just to make sure I understand, is this funding towards program materials, or is the plan to hire another staff member to run a program that addresses, multiple departments regionally?
yeah, so just to give a little background, we have currently a jail arrest diversion grant for $200,000 per year that funds both of the co-responder clinicians through the Department of Mental Health. And because that grant program has been so successful, and it's considered a regional grant because Beverly, we're the lead, but it covers 5 other communities on the North Shore, we applied for this Essex County TTAC program grant also for all of Essex County, not just the North Shore area, to train law enforcement officers throughout the county in various things when they're encountering people who have behavioral health issues, mental health issues, maybe suicidal, may have some condition or something that makes it a challenge for law enforcement interacting with them. It teaches them strategies on how to handle these situations as best possible. So we worked on this grant for, I think it was about 18 months. It's very challenging, and we were so happy to get awarded this grant. And the grant basically will be a crisis intervention training center based out of the Beverly Police Department, but servicing all of Essex County, and it will hire one person to run the program. And if the program is successful, I would anticipate it will expand. So they could potentially get more grant funding in future years to hire another person or two. And yeah, we think it's a really important program. We've seen programs rolled out like this across the country to help train law enforcement, specifically engaging with people in these types of situations that can be challenging.
Thank you, and thank you for clarifying. I did have some conversations with the chief and wanted to make sure I was thinking about the right thing.
Yeah.
So with that and understanding that we'll be bringing in at least one staff member to run this program.
Yes.
You mentioned, or in the cover letter from the mayor, it's mentioned that there is a full 12-month renewal for FY25.
Yes.
So two-part question I have, is that a guaranteed renewal? And then with that, if it is, do we have to continue reapplying the fiscal year afterwards to maintain this program, or else we would need to look for some other source of funding?
Right. So I'll answer the first part of that question. Is it guaranteed funding? Nothing is ever guaranteed with the state. So we're very confident that it will be renewed for the new fiscal year, but anything could happen. I haven't seen anything like that happen in my 6.5 years here, but we've had, fairly good economic times and financials. So what happens is this grant program works very similar to the jail arrest diversion program, where we initially submit a grant application, we're approved and awarded a grant, and then towards the end of the fiscal year in like May, we get a scope of work that we complete, and it's called a grant renewal. So it's not like a grant application, it's like a 1 or 2 page renewal. Has anything changed during that year? What are the accomplishments? What are the goals that have been achieved? And then they send us a new contract that renews the grant for the year. So this Essex County TTAC grant will work very similarly to the jail arrest diversion grant, where we get the new scope in May and the new renewal, and we just submit those for the new funding.
Okay, thank you. So with that in mind, there's some level of confidence that
Yeah.
if this program meets its intended goals,
Yes.
there will likely be continued support from the state.
Yes, the Department of Mental Health is very excited about this TTAC program being based out of Beverly. There are other TTAC programs in the state. I believe there's one based out of Somerville that's been around for quite a long time that services sort of Boston, Metro Boston. I think there's another one up in either Tewksbury or Lawrence area that services kind of maybe northern Essex County and maybe another part of another county. And so there really wasn't anything for the North Shore area or the majority of Essex County. So Department of Mental Health is really supportive and excited about this potential program. So I would be very surprised if it wasn't renewed for July 1, like the other jail arrest diversion grant.
All right, thank you, and thank you for your work with the police chief on this.
You're welcome, thanks.
Madam President, anything from you? Yes?
Just one, if I may?
Sure.
Sorry, Ms. Barrett, to make you come back up. I just wanted to clarify, so you were mentioning that, like the other grant, we're sort of the lead on this, but it is a regional grant?
Yes.
So I think I understand this to be correct, but I want to check. Other police departments, if this were to roll out, could come to Beverly for this training, but there would be no cost or no expense to them. It would be this regional opportunity, but we're the lead on the grant.
We're the lead on the grant. Well, we're the only applicant, so we're the sole grant holder. But yeah, we run the program out of the Beverly Police Station. And there is a grant so when you send law enforcement from other communities, that leaves openings for their staff, so they have to fill those hours with overtime or other officers. And there are grants that backfill those communities can apply for, which I've offered to, if they don't have a grants director or a grants manager, I've offered to guide them in the right direction and help them with those. It's surprising how many communities don't have a grants manager or grants director, and they could really benefit from them, I think, bringing in additional grants revenue each year. And some community, we have the Narcan grant in Beverly, and I'm surprised at how many other communities don't have that grant, particularly ones that have some pretty serious substance issues in their communities. And so I try to help those communities out as much as I can, sharing information and grant opportunities that I think they should be going for. So.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Barrett. I think we're very fortunate to have a grants director and appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel really positively about this ability for us to have this training. I think it's really important for our department and for other departments as well, so thank you.
Thank you. I'd echo those comments as well. Thank you.
Thanks.
Entertain a motion to approve order number 58.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Approved 3-0. So I think that's the end of our agenda for tonight. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the Committee on Finance and Property.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I don't think so. We're just doing committee stuff, right? Yeah. No, I think I'm good. All right. Jerry, I'll go finance property first.
All right, we'll call the full council back to order. Thank you, subcommittees, for your work there. And we'll go to reports from committees. Ms. Kent.
Order number 42, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a request to appropriate $107,019.86 into a new opiate special revenue fund from the available certified free cash. Have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 6-0.
Order number 55, Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a $21,150 emergency management performance grant from the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA to be used to purchase equipment for water rescue missions. Have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 6-0.
Order number 56, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a $25,000 firefighter safety equipment grant from the EOPSS in the Department of Fire Services to purchase coats and gloves, turnout gear for the Beverly Fire Department. Have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Carries 6-0.
Order number 57, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a donation of gift cards in the amount of $500 from Iron Horse Funding LLC to benefit the senior citizens in our community. Have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Carries 6-0.
Order number 58, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a $53,000 Massachusetts Department of Mental Health grant to develop Training and Technical Assistance Center Crisis Intervention Training Program at the Beverly Police Department. Have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
That carries 6-0. And thank you to our grants director, Ms. Barrett, who is here with us this evening, both for being with us to answer questions and also for her work. Obviously, we just heard a bunch of grants coming in and appreciated.
Order number 36, the Committee on Public Services, to whom refer the matter regarding a petition to install a gas main in Curwood Heights. Have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 6-0, and I know Councilor Rotundo will be working to, as Ms. Trudeau asked, to make sure that residents, all of those streets in the neighborhood are well informed.
All done.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. Thank you to our subcommittees for your work tonight. I do want to just remind not only the council, but also anyone who's watching on BevCam, watching later on BevCam, that we do have a meeting coming up next Monday, the 26th. That will be at 7 p.m. here in council chambers. The main agenda item there is the public hearing, the opening of the public hearing on the proposed HVAC improvements to the Beverly Public Library main branch. And I say the opening of that public hearing because it's likely that we will continue that into March. But we will begin that process. We also will, ahead of the public hearing opening, hear an update from the City Hall design team about updates on the City Hall proposed renovation project. So we will be here 7 o'clock p.m. that evening. Members of the public are welcome to join us or to watch on BevCam as well. Councilors, are there any announcements from any of you or reminders?
I have enough.
Ms. Kent, please.
Early voting will start on Saturday, and it will run through Friday. We're getting the high. Beginning at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning until 5 p.m., and you may have gotten a robocall tonight from Robert Pierce, but if you didn't, we'll be here Saturday. Hope you can come down if you can't vote in person on Election Day, or come down anytime during the week, during our business hours, or on Sunday from 8 a.m. till 12 p.m.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent, and a big thanks to our city clerk, assistant city clerk, and the entire team in the clerk's office for all their work, making sure that we're ready to roll for these upcoming elections. Thank you very much. Any other announcements or reminders from the council? I will also just mention that on March 4th, we do have a joint meeting with the Beverly School Committee, and that will very likely be at Beverly Middle School, although we'll get final confirmation on that from the school committee president. Among other things on that agenda, this is a standing meeting that we do in the spring combined with the school committee, but we will have State Senator Joan Lovely and our representative Jerry Paracella coming as part of that agenda to offer some legislative updates and to give us some insight on what's been happening in their work and what they foresee coming from the state for Beverly. Well, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 6-0. We are adjourned. Thank you to BevCam. Thank you very much to all of our speakers. Good night.